The hotel clerk's apologetic smile felt rehearsing as she slid a single key card across the marble counter. "I'm so sorry, but with the storm, this is the only room we have left." Sarah Matthews, my boss, my career gatekeeper, striking in a deep crimson dress, met my eyes with that unreadable expression I'd studied in countless boardroom negotiations. "Only one room left," she said, her voice steady as steel. "We're both adults, right, Daniel?" My mind flashed to Lily's face pressed against our apartment window that morning, to the promotion that could finally afford her the private school she deserved, to the pancake Saturday ritual I'd promised never to miss. Every rational instinct screamed to decline, to find another solution. Instead, I heard myself reply, "I won't tell a soul if you don't." I had no idea those 7 words would unravel everything I thought I knew about second chances. If this story has you hooked, smash that like button and subscribe for more emotionally charged real-life stories that will leave you breathless. And comment below, what country are you watching from? I never expected to be raising a 5-year-old alone at 34. 2 years ago, cancer rewrote my entire story, taking my wife Ellie and leaving me to navigate fatherhood solo. Every decision since, every late night at the office, every missed bedtime story, orbited one question: what gives Lily the best future? Sarah Matthews swept in like a hurricane 3 years ago, they said in the break room. Youngest department head in company history. Ruthless. Brilliant. When she personally selected me for the Chicago presentation, I knew this was my shot at the senior position that could change everything for Lily. "Daddy, why can't I come too?" Lily had asked that morning, clutching Mr. Whiskers, her constant companion since losing her mother. "It's boring grown-up stuff, sweetheart," I'd said, kneeling to meet her tearful eyes. "But I'll be home before you know it. Pancake Saturday. I promise. Cross your heart. Cross my heart." Now, standing in the Chicago hotel lobby with Sarah's expectant gaze locked on mine, that promise felt heavier than ever. The presentation had been flawless, but the freak spring storm had other plans, grounding flights and filling every hotel for miles. The elevator ride to the 7th floor was suffocating silence. I texted Mrs. Patel about the delay, my thumb hovering over the send button longer than necessary. When the door to room 714 swung open, my stomach dropped. One king-size bed, no couch, just an armchair that looked about as comfortable as a park bench, and a window framing the storm that had trapped us here together. Sarah set down her overnight bag with practiced efficiency. "Well," she said, a hint of amusement breaking through her corporate mask, "this just got interesting. The morning I left for Chicago, Lily had arranged her entire stuffed animal collection on the living room couch like an audience. Mr. Whiskers sat front and center, his button eyes seeming to judge me as I zipped my carry-on. "They're going to miss you too, Daddy," she'd said solemnly, adjusting a threadbare elephant that had been Ellie's childhood toy. "Especially Mr. Whiskers. He gets sad when you're gone." I'd crouched down beside her, smoothing back the dark curls she'd inherited from her mother. "It's only 3 days, Tiger. Mrs. Patel is going to make her famous snickerdoodles, and you can FaceTime me before bed every night. Will you get the promotion this time?" Her question caught me off guard. 5 years old, and already she understood more than I wanted her to. She'd heard me on the phone with my sister, explaining why we couldn't afford the summer art camp she'd circled in the community center flyer. "I'm going to try my very best," I'd said, pulling her into a hug that lasted longer than it should have. Her small arms had wrapped around my neck with desperate strength. "Mommy used to say you can do anything." Her voice was muffled against my shoulder. The words had nearly broken me. Ellie had believed in me, with a certainty I'd lost somewhere between hospital visits and single-parent exhaustion. This Chicago presentation was supposed to prove she'd been right. The senior position meant stability. It meant Lily could stay in her school with her friends. It meant I could finally exhale. "Cross your heart," Lily had whispered as I stood to leave. I traced an X over my chest, sealing a promise I was terrified I couldn't keep. "Cross my heart." Now, standing in a hotel room with my boss and one bed between us, That promise felt like it was written in disappearing ink. Sarah Matthews arrived at Morrison & Associates on a Tuesday in October, and by Friday, 3 people had quit. She doesn't accept mediocrity, Jim from accounting had whispered during that first week, watching Sarah dismantle a presentation that had taken the creative team 2 months to build. She accepts excellence, or she accepts your resignation. The rumors preceded her like thunder before lightning. Harvard MBA at 24. Turned around a failing ad agency in Atlanta before she was 30. Personally headhunted by our CEO after she'd stolen 2 major clients from our biggest competitor. The board had created the department head position specifically for her. Youngest person to ever hold that title in the company's 40-year history. I'd watched her operate from the safety of my cubicle those first few months. She wore power like other women wore perfume. Bold, unapologetic, impossible to ignore. Her feedback sessions were legendary. Junior associates would emerge looking like they'd survived a natural disaster, clutching revised briefs covered in her precise red ink. She made Marcus cry. Rebecca had told me over coffee one morning, her voice a mixture of horror and admiration. Actually cry. But then she stayed 2 hours after everyone left to help him rebuild his entire strategy deck. That was the thing about Sarah Matthews that people didn't talk about enough. Yes, she demanded perfection. Yes, her standards were impossibly high. But she also recognized talent when she saw it. And once she believed in you, she'd move mountains to help you succeed. When she called me into her office 6 weeks ago to discuss the Chicago pitch, I'd felt that strange combination of terror and validation. You have instincts, Daniel, she'd said, those sharp eyes assessing me like I was a problem she was determined to solve. Raw instincts that most people spend years trying to develop. I need that in Chicago. I nodded, professional and grateful, having no idea that instinct would eventually lead us both here. The silence in room 714 had a physical weight to it, pressing down like the storm clouds outside. Sarah moved through the space with deliberate efficiency, hanging her blazer in the closet, setting her phone on a nightstand. Her nightstand, apparently, the one closest to the bathroom. I stood frozen near the door, my overnight bag still in my hand like I might bolt at any moment. You can breathe, Daniel, Sarah said without looking at me. I promise I don't bite. A pause. Well, not outside the boardroom, anyway. The joke should have broken the tension. Instead, it reminded me exactly who I was trapped in here with. The woman who held my career in her perfectly manicured hands. Thunder cracked outside, rattling the windows. The rain had intensified, sheets of water blurring the Chicago skyline into abstract streaks of light. The weather report on my phone showed the storm system stalled directly over the city. No flights until morning at the earliest. I'll take the chair, I said, finally setting down my bag. It's fine. I've slept in worse places. Sarah turned, and for the first time since we'd entered the room, I saw something crack in her corporate armor. A flicker of annoyance. Maybe even hurt. Don't be absurd. That chair would cripple you by morning, and we have 3 follow-up meetings tomorrow. She gestured at the massive bed. It's a king. We can build a pillow wall if it makes you feel better about your virtue. It's not about, I started then stopped. What was it about? Professionalism? Fear? The uncomfortable awareness that Sarah Matthews in a hotel room felt nothing like Sarah Matthews in a conference room? She raised an eyebrow, waiting for me to finish that sentence. I didn't. Another crack of thunder filled the silence between us. Sarah disappeared into the bathroom with her overnight bag, and I heard the shower running moments later. I used the time to change into sweatpants and a t-shirt, trying not to think about the fact that my boss was naked 20 feet away. When she emerged 30 minutes later, I barely recognized her. The power suit had been replaced by Yale sweatpants and an oversized gray t-shirt. Her hair, usually pinned in that severe bun, fell in damp waves past her shoulders. But it was the glasses that startled me most, black-rimmed, slightly oversized, the kind that suggested late nights and library study sessions rather than corporate dominance. What? She asked, catching my expression as she toweled her hair. Nothing. I just didn't know you wore glasses. Contacts during the day. My optometrist says I need to give my eyes a break. She shrugged, almost self-conscious. The intimidating image doesn't work as well with glasses, apparently. I didn't tell her she looked more human this way, more real. She ordered room service without asking what I wanted: pasta primavera for two, a bottle of wine, extra bread. When it arrived, we sat cross-legged on opposite ends of the bed, the food spread between us like a neutral zone. "You did well today," Sarah said, twirling linguine around her fork. "The client loved your vision for the campaign. Jenkins specifically asked for you on the implementation team." "Really?" The validation warmed me more than the wine. "Really?" She met my eyes over her glasses. "You're talented, Daniel. You know that, right? You're not just some desperate single dad hanging on by a thread." The observation landed with unexpected precision, and something shifted in the air between us. "How did you know?" She smiled, softer than I'd ever seen. "I pay attention." The wine loosened something between us, softened the edges of professionalism until we were just two people sharing pasta in a storm. "I wanted to be a pastry chef," Sarah said suddenly, staring into her glass like the confession surprised even her. "Before Harvard, before the MBA, before all of this, I was actually accepted to Le Cordon Bleu in Paris." I set down my fork, genuinely shocked. "You're kidding." "Dead serious. I used to spend entire weekends perfecting croissant lamination. My apartment smelled like butter and vanilla for 2 years straight." She laughed, but there was something wistful in it. "My father called it a charming hobby and suggested I pursue something with actual prospects. So I did. Do you ever regret it?" She considered this, tucking a damp strand of hair behind her ear. "Sometimes. Late at night, I watch baking competition shows and critique their techniques like I'm still that 22-year-old who thought she could change the world with the perfect tart 10. She looked at me directly. "What about you? What's your abandoned dream?" I hadn't talked about this in years. Not since Ellie. Photojournalism. National Geographic was the goal, documenting cultures, telling stories through images. I had a portfolio, internship applications ready. Then Ellie got pregnant, and suddenly I needed stability, health insurance, a real salary. "Do you resent it?" "Never," I said immediately. "Lily is worth every abandoned dream." But sometimes, I trailed off, searching for the right words. "Sometimes I look at my life and wonder who I would have been." Sarah nodded slowly, understanding passing between us without words. The curator of the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Pastries meets the Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer. Instead, we're marketing executives eating overpriced hotel pasta. "At least it's good pasta," I offered. Her smile was genuine this time, reaching her eyes. "At least there's that." The conversation drifted as the wine bottle emptied, and somewhere around midnight, Sarah asked the question I'd been dreading since we'd started talking like actual human beings. "What was she like? Your wife?" The room suddenly felt smaller. Outside, the rain had softened to a steady rhythm against the windows. "Ellie was light," I said finally. That sounds cliché, but it's true. She made everything feel possible, even when it wasn't. Sarah waited, not pushing, just listening in that focused way she had. "The worst part isn't the big moments," I continued, surprised by my own honesty. "It's the small ones. Every night, I still reach for her. Just for a second, in that space between sleeping and waking, I forget. And then I remember, and the bed feels enormous and empty all over again." "I'm sorry," Sarah said quietly. "Lily asked me last week if I was lonely." The words came faster now. 2 years of holding them and finally breaking free. "She's 5 years old, and she asked if I was lonely. What kind of father makes his daughter worry about that?" "The human kind," Sarah said. "The kind who's doing his best in an impossible situation. Some days I'm terrified I'm failing her, that I'm so busy trying to provide for her future that I'm missing her present, that she'll grow up remembering a father who was always tired, always worried, always just absent, even when I was right there." Sarah shifted closer. The professional distance between us completely dissolved. "Daniel, look at me." When I did, her eyes were fierce behind those glasses. "That little girl knows she's loved. I've seen the photos on your desk. I've heard you on the phone with her. You're not failing. You're surviving. There's a difference." Something in my chest cracked open at those words. If you're invested in Daniel and Sarah's story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt tales of second chances and unexpected connections. Drop a comment below telling us what country you're watching from. We love hearing from our global community. I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains and the unfamiliar warmth of another person beside me. Sarah was curled against my chest, her hand resting over my heart, her breathing deep and even. My arm was wrapped around her waist like it belonged there, like my body had made decisions in sleep that my conscious mind would never have permitted. For one perfect, terrifying moment, I didn't move. Just felt the weight of her, the reality of another human being close enough to matter. Then her eyes opened. We separated instantly, professionally, like actors resuming their roles after a scene break. Sarah retreated to her side of the bed, smoothing hair that didn't need smoothing. I sat up, suddenly fascinated by the alarm clock on the nightstand. "The storm cleared," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I got an alert. Our flight leaves at 10. Right. Good." I stood, grabbing clothes from my bag without really seeing them. "I'll shower first if that's okay." "Sure." The bathroom was a refuge. Under the hot water, I tried to reconcile the woman I'd held during the night with the boss who controlled my career trajectory. Tried to unknow the vulnerability she'd shown me, the dreams she'd abandoned, the way her laughter sounded without the armor of professionalism. The flight back to New York was excruciating in its normalcy. Sarah sat in first class, courtesy of her senior status. I was 12 rows back in economy, exactly where the hierarchy dictated I should be. She worked on her laptop the entire flight, never once glancing toward the back of the plane. When we landed at JFK, she offered me a firm handshake in the terminal. "Good work in Chicago, Daniel. I'll be in touch about next steps." Then she disappeared into the crowd, rolling her designer luggage behind her, leaving me to wonder if I'd imagined the entire night. The email arrived 3 weeks later, during Lily's soccer practice. I was sitting on the bleachers, half watching her chase the ball with enthusiastic incompetence, when my phone buzzed with a message from HR. "Congratulations on your promotion to Senior Marketing Associate. Effective immediately. Please see attached compensation package and benefits information." I read it twice, then 3 times, my heart hammering against my ribs. The salary increase was exactly what I needed, enough for Lily's school, enough to finally breathe. I'd done it. Against all odds, I'd actually done it. The envelope arrived the next morning via internal mail. Cream-colored, expensive paper, my name written in elegant script across the front. Inside was a single card, handwritten in the same precise penmanship. "Daniel, asterisk, you earned this. Not because of Chicago, but in spite of it. Your instincts were right. The client signed for 3 years. Asterisk. Asterisk, I meant what I said about you being talented. Don't forget that when the imposter syndrome kicks in at 2 a.m. Asterisk. Asterisk also, attached is information about a photography workshop at the new school. Professional development budget should cover it. Consider it a senior associate perk. Asterisk. S. My hands trembled slightly as I turned the card over. On the back, in smaller letters, she'd added one more line. "Lily is lucky to have you." I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at those 5 words. In 3 weeks, Sarah hadn't mentioned Chicago once. Our interactions had been purely professional, brief emails, project updates, the occasional hallway nod. I convinced myself that night had been an aberration, a storm-induced glitch in the natural order. But this note, with its careful observations and unexpected kindness, suggested otherwise. I tucked it into my desk drawer, beneath old presentation drafts and forgotten business cards, like a secret I wasn't quite ready to examine. The company summer picnic happened in Central Park on a Saturday in July, which meant I had no excuse not to bring Lily. She'd been begging to see where Daddy works for months, and Mrs. Patel had conveniently scheduled a weekend visit to her daughter in Boston. Lily wore her favorite tiger-striped dress, complete with ears on a headband. "I'm a fierce tiger today, Daddy," she announced as we walked through the park gates. "Tigers are brave and strong, and they protect their families. Just like you," I said, squeezing her hand. The picnic was already in full swing, tables loaded with food, a bounce house, face painting station swarmed with kids. I was scanning for familiar faces from my team when Lily suddenly yanked on my arm. "Daddy, who's that?" I followed her pointing finger and felt my stomach drop. Sarah Matthews stood near the refreshment table, looking profoundly out of place in designer jeans and a white linen blouse, holding a plastic cup of lemonade like she wasn't quite sure what to do with it. Our eyes met across the lawn. Something flickered in her expression, surprise, maybe nervousness, before she offered a small wave. "That's Sarah," I said carefully. "She works with Daddy." "She's pretty," Lily observed with 5-year-old bluntness. "Like a butterfly. Can I meet her?" Before I could answer, Lily was already pulling me across the grass with determined tiger energy. There was no escape, no professional distance to hide behind. Just my daughter, my boss, and the weight of everything unspoken between us. "Hi," Sarah said as we approached, and I noticed her hand trembling slightly around the cup. "You must be Lily." "I'm a tiger," Lily corrected seriously. "What are you?" Sarah blinked, caught off guard. Then something remarkable happened. She smiled, genuinely smiled, in a way I'd never seen in any boardroom. "I think," she said, crouching down to Lily's level, "I'm probably a butterfly." That's the end of our story. If these heartfelt moments touched you, please subscribe and drop a comment telling us what country you're watching from. We love hearing from our global community. Your support means everything, and we have so many more stories of unexpected love and transformation coming your way.